Oh shit.
Fingers crossed.
Come on. Come on. We're live. We've been live for about 12 seconds.
You're doing better on my screen. I hope it's the same for everyone else.
Yeah. It looks like we're holding 60. It looks like we're holding 60. Maybe it was just... Okay, it was... Well, I'm going to hit play and then the whole thing is going to crash and burn. But... But it looks like we're holding 60 FPS, which is great.
We also dropped 30 viewers while everyone refreshes, so that could be part of it.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, so basically when we're back in and it's all... We're live for the Vamp-aye-r game. Hey! yeah, okay, yeah. Twitch was having a moment. It looks like we've got a fairly stable 60 FPS though, which is great because it means that you're not seeing me move like this, which I imagine like in a stock image, stock movement.
Stop motion animation.
Stop motion, that's it. Okay, and it looks like our vampires even moving about in a smooth way.
Yes, I can see it on my screen.
So, naturally, the first thing you do in this game as a vampire is, I believe it's straight up kill your sister.
Spoilers, man. Come on.
I mean, hey.
Oh, there's my husband. It's the Mothman.
Hey, Mothman. Sorry for stealing Joy away for an entire evening. Yep. No, you don't get a choice in this. This is what you need to do. Sometimes you just gotta do it, you know? So I'm probably going to start, Joy, with something that a lot of your followers probably already know. What got you into vampires so much?
Contrary to popular belief, it was not my infamous crucifix nail nipples post on Tumblr. I've always been a huge fan of vampires and the mythology around it. It just so happens that my life blew up when I posted about crucifix nail nipples, and I became known as the Vampire Nipple Lady online. So that's been a fun 5 years.
There is worse nicknames out there.
There is, but there are not many.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna see if I can turn your volume up a wee bit. I think your volume is right up anyway, Joy, but I just suppose it's better to triple check.
I can also move my mic closer to my face, which may help. So
yeah, sometimes I need to actually be swallowing my my mic. Like I need to literally just have it here and speak into it like this, and occasionally make eye contact with some of you.
No, please, a moment.
to make it really uncomfortable.
God, it's a total bummer when you kill your sister and then immediately get shot at. Sexy eye contact. Why? Thank you.
No, don't shoot.
I'm not sure if this is as fast as I can run. Oh, no. No, fuck.
This is a nightmare.
Ow.
I need to get
Do you know what I
out
mean?
of here.
I love the AI in this game and how determined they are to come after you. Like, they will literally throw themselves off buildings to chase you.
Yeah. Vampires, those fucking bastards. Also, I like how everyone's really acutely aware what a vampire kind of is. Like, it's interesting being in a universe where you're not like it's not a complete stealth game as such. It's like they're kind of commonplace that there's monsters and stuff.
What have I done? What's all this about?
Like a parallel universe where the flu epidemic is secondary to the fact that there's vampires and werewolves roaming the streets of London. It's really fun. Like, it's like, oh, we're in the middle of... For people who don't know, it's in 1918 and the flu epidemic is happening at the time. And people are obviously very ill, but the biggest concern is that people are also being turned into vampires, which is you know, there's flu and then there's vampirism.
I mean,
Take your pick at this point.
if I had a choice between like the flu and becoming a vampire, I mean, the flu in 1918. Would you really want to be around those kind of hospitals? Probably not.
No, please, stop.
That's you know what? That's a poll we can put in chat. Is it flu or vampire?
What do you want?
Well, if you're a vampire, you don't get flu anymore.
Exactly.
You just have to feed on people or rats for the rest of your undead life.
I mean you no harm. I need help. Die, you fucking leech.
If I had rabies and you offered me bird flu, I'd bite your hand off. That's fair.
I can't make any sense of this. Shut up, beast! Who are you? What is this all about? What in God's name? I'll do the rest of the job. Just leave me.
So it was like vampires are so commonplace that folk know the weaknesses. It's like, yeah, the sun will fuck you, and we're also a gang of vampire hunters, which, you know, there's always them, isn't there?
Somewhere to hide.
Ah, it's
Like,
hold
the dudes
B
just
to
come-
run.
Let me go.
Oh fuck! Run right
Dudes
into the
just come
crossbow.
back from First World War. Can you imagine doing the First World War and you have concerns over vampires?
Yeah.
Is anybody
You're just in
there?
your trenches and you're like looking around going,
Tell you what, a vampire game set in the trenches would be quite interesting.
it would.
It would probably be the most like fucked situation for all of the NPCs involved, but it'd be quite cool. What do we got? We've got foes.
What have you done?
Mary!
We've just seen this.
Mary! Mary, I'm sorry. Whoever did this to us, I will find them.
Okay, so is Jonathan? That's his name, isn't it? Big
Dr. Jonathan Reed.
Jonathan Reed, the big vampire. Oh, what the fuck? Sorry, I was looking at her face there, being like, "Oh God." I think there's something worse in this universe than vampires. Unless is that a vampire? That's not a vampire.
It might be. There's different hierarchies of vampires in this one, and if you're made into like a human-shaped vampire, you get to retain your senses, but if you don't, you become like a shambling monster.
Ah. So, okay, so vampire hierarchies is something that I'm not very familiar with as a concept. Can you explain that a wee bit more, just on the basis of why and what?
There's so they tend to do it in terms of
Impossible.
how to explain this. So mostly in a lot of the lore, it's based on both class wealth. That's how they tend to actually structure this as a metaphor, and a lot of people who become the human-shaped blood-sucking vampires tend to be the upper class people, and then you have the metaphor for the thralls who become like the shambling monsters, who tend to typically be servants and or working class people. But in this universe there is there's like a master vampire race essentially, and they specific bites turn you into specific things, and if you're only given XYZ amount of a vampire's blood or something, you don't turn into a full vampire, you turn into like an enslaved thrall monster that goes insane with bloodlust. Which is why Jonathan has this obsession with staying. He either decides not to drink blood or he just goes full monster, which, you know, depends on your cup of tea, really.
I was gonna say, he looks a wee bit too well dressed to be like one of the thrall kind of punters.
Yeah,
I said punter
it very-
vampires.
Yeah, it really much plays into the kind of the vampire myths, which are it's blending the two Because
I still have
the idea
so
of
much
vampires
left that
being
needs
upper class
doing.
and wealthy actually only really came about after Dracula. Because before that, a lot of vampire myths where it was peasants who were being buried with their heads cut off and like stakes through their hearts and everything. Um,
So,
Apparently, I'm at maximum volume, guys. So,
nope, I've just managed to turn it up even higher.
oh, have we?
So we're gonna have booming joy. You're gonna,
Am I now even louder?
yeah, you are, and I've also not jumped back to seeing the stream. So hopefully that's all good now. Yeah, I'm
But yeah,
pretty
this
sure.
game's really interesting because it does blend the two. It kind of goes the kind of Dracula idea of um, vampires and upper class and a lot of things, but it also leans on a lot of the old mythology where it was mostly peasants who were affected by the vampire myths. You know, it was a very kind of old world belief that, you know, the upper classes couldn't be affected by these sort of things because they were closer to God and they had, you know, all those sorts of things. But then as soon as Dracula becomes a thing, it's, well, the upper classes are feeding on the lower classes.
Yeah, I mean, like I've heard, kind of through. Obviously, I'm not any at all well read on it, but like I've heard of like vampires being used from a kind of like almost describing what originally was fears around like the homosexual community. But there's also that upper class, like literally the bloodsuckers leeching off of like the working class. So basically landlords and stuff like that.
It's
Like,
also, yeah, basically.
we all know
There's also
landlords,
fear
right?
around there's fear around immigrants. You know, that's part of it
Yeah.
as well. They're looking at, you know, the old, like, part of the terror over Dracula was, oh, he comes from old Europe and he's coming over here with his money and he's preying on the new blood of the empire. And it was a whole thing, but it was, oh, it's um this huge fascination with monsters coming over from other countries, which kind of became a big factor in like British lore around vampires, which is it's really fascinating. Like, there's only one vampire myth in Scotland that I'm aware of, like a proper one, and it's from he's supposed to be a Jewish guy. You
Oh
know, he's a
fuck.
vampire that haunts the necropolis in Glasgow, and he's got steel teeth. He doesn't. It's my favourite story because it's a vampire who's got steel teeth, and I'm going because he's in Glasgow. It's the only place where a vampire would get his teeth kicked in, and but the myths are centered around it was the fears over Jewish immigrants coming over during World War One and World War Two,
God.
and
I
there's a
hate.
huge element
I
of
hate.
race and yeah.
Yeah, I hate that the only Scottish vampire myth is us doing an anti-Semitism. That fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's very not cool.
Could we not have done the
Yeah.
landlord thing instead?
I vote we change it. I vote we make new vampire myths and we change it.
let's write new Scotland lore.
We have more werewolf mythology than we do vampires. But yeah, it's really fascinating when you get into it. Like I did loads of I did mythology as part of my dissertation, and I did the evolution of. I mean, I mostly did it through Terry Pratchett, but I did the evolution of folklore into mythology and then into popular fiction. And there's so much of it you don't realize is just rooted in class warfare and immigration, and you know, there's so much of it is just every bad is impossible.
yeah.
You're looking at it and you're going, oh, that's a bit, yeah, that's cringe. That's not very good, guys. Come on. Like, I want to enjoy my vampires. I don't want to feel that, you know, that kind of way.
It's kind of
Scotland
like,
chose its side with the wolves. We did.
yeah. I find it interesting that like, you know, it's kind of interesting when obviously these things can be like children's stories and stuff like that, and then as you kind of grow up with them a bit more, it turns into like really serious commentary about like very specific things that are happening to society.
Which is specifically how I learned a lot of things, because my dad was my main. He fed me a whole bunch of Celtic myth, but he was raised by his Jewish grandmother, so there was a lot of things that were mixed together in the mythology and things that I was taught. And my dad was a storyteller. He's never done anything officially, but my dad used to tell them was wonderful stories, and I just absorbed them like a sponge. And part of it was the Celtic mythology around like werewolves and other creatures, and how different it is from a lot of mainstream portrayals. Like the idea of lycanthropy is actually based more on the Scandinavian and German myths versus what we have in our own history, which is a much more gentler like they're called wolvers in Scotland, and they're actually people who live in the forest. They're bipedal wolves with the wolf head, and they actually take care of poor people. Like that's one of
Yeah,
their things. They go around
did
and
they-
they deliver fish to starving families.
I'd heard that they'd leave fish on windowsills. I've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got
Or they-
cooler wolves basically.
We do. We've got wolvers, and they're kind creatures who look after children who get lost in forests, and like, it's very, very different from what people think of when they think of werewolf. Most people think of werewolves as the lycanthropy, the lore that comes from, like I said, Scandinavian countries and Germany and all that. And it's fascinating to watch how one of them became more prevalent just because of the violence and the fascination with fear and all those other things. Whereas the kinder myths don't get told, which is part of my reason for when I did Hunger Pangs. I very purposely looked at Celtic lore for what I was doing. I mean, even Irish, I'm going to absolutely butcher this word, but I think it's the Felda from Irish, the Irish myths. And those people are people who chose to be werewolves. Either they're cursed or they choose. And the ones that choose do so to protect their people. And they're able to control bloodlust. Which is just, it's a really fascinating idea. You know, it's very, from a cultural aspect, you're looking at it and you're going, you know, like, what is so different in our cultures where we look at monsters and we think, well, it's obviously a link back to the old religions and a lot of the old traditions where you're going, well, we're protecting people. And then you have they're being invaded by other forces, whereas in other countries they view it as it's a monstrous aspect that they want to distance themselves from. So it's a fascinating. I love talking about it. Yeah, it's really fascinating. Are wolves the ones who can turn back if given human clothes by a loved one, or am I getting? There are some myths that talk about that. They can get turned back by the people they love, and Gail Carragher actually plays on that with her her storyline, although she does base hers in she goes the Egyptian route for a lot of hers. She goes the head of Anubis for hers.
Sorry,
With fairy myths, yeah.
I'm trying to concentrate really hard here. Vampire combat is a bit, I want to say a bit janky.
It is janky. It's a very middle tier game. It's got an excellent story, but your combat's a wee bit funny at first.
I love how you're just progressively becoming more and more Scottish as the stream continues. It is. It's when you reach a word with like a really good like R sound in it, and you just you extract that R to your heart's content.
I don't often get to do it anymore. That's the problem. It's that, you know, even when I'm on phone calls for work over here, I'm using my telephone voice, which is very Minnesotan a lot of the time, because that's what people, you know, when they answer the phone and you answer with this, and you know, there's that pause where they're going, "Where did I phone?"
I'm curious. Can you put on your Minnesotan accent, or is it a thing that is entirely dictated based on who you're speaking to?
It's who I'm talking to.
Okay.
So I'm listening to you, so it's not going to work. If I was talking to, where's Holly? Where's my Holly mop?
Someone will pay for what happened.
Even still, I was picking up a bit of Scottish there as well. So
I know I can't turn it off completely when I'm actually talking to someone who's Scottish. But my mother's like, "Oh, you sound so American," when I'm like this, and I'm like, "Really? Really? You think so?"
Nah, that's good.
The aim.
So I suppose when, like, I mean, it's gonna come up, right? So just so you know, I actually have Hunger Pangs and I've been reading it. So of course it was gonna be coming up in this stream. So I now
Thank you for the plug.
I know, yeah, you should all get it because I've been really enjoying reading it. I have not finished it. It was something that I'd kind of hoped, but this week threw a spanner in the works in regards to the amount of time I could spend reading in the evenings. But yeah, you can write really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's. I imagine you get told that all the
to hear.
time, but I really enjoy reading them. I'm maybe about halfway through, and I'm cautious about spoiling anything for people who are yet to read it. So I suppose I want to make sure with chat that it's okay if I talk about specific things within the book, but I'll try and talk around them as much as possible, if that's okay. So if chat can give me a thumbs up whether that's an alright thing to say or ask, then let me know. I wonder who this guy is. Either way, he's dead, and it wasn't me that killed him, so...
The man has been drained of all blood.
Randa with her 9 copies. I mean, you also have the files from before everyone else got the files as well, Randa. So it's probably closer to 12 at this point.
Well, I picked up the horny copy. I think that's my first one.
Copy.
So it was the choice between the horny copy or the I don't want to say non-horny, because I think there's still romance obviously in the other one, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
It's just maybe
Yes.
Fade to Black, which is that's actually one thing I wanted to speak about before we even go into that. Is I really like that you provided 2. I think that's really considerate, and I don't know of anyone else who's done something like that. I've never seen any other author do that. So I suppose, are you just super duper considerate and that's why everyone loves you, or is it?
There are 1 or 2 other romance authors that have done it, but literally only other 1 or 2 that I'm aware of. The main reason I did it was because people kept telling me they wanted to support my work, they were going to read it, but they just skipped the sexy scenes because that's not their cup of tea. And I thought to myself, well, that's rubbish.
Cool.
That,
So,
it's... If I'm writing something, I want it to be as accessible as possible. And it's maybe an extra couple of hours worth of work for me to make something that, it... Logistically, it takes a lot more work, but from a writing aspect, it means I can just go back and rewrite something. And I just don't include sex for people who don't want to read explicit sex scenes. It doesn't sell as well as the horny copy. I will come out and say that right now. It is not really worth my while doing it in terms of sales, but for the number of people that message me to let me know how happy they are, it is absolutely worth it. And even if, even if it only sold 10 copies, which it did not, it sold a couple of hundred, which I was not expecting. It was just the joy people have is enough for me to keep doing it. And people who are like, oh, I'm finally included in a genre that I often feel like I'm not part of. Because romance didn't typically used to have sex scenes. Most of it tended to be fade to black. But more recently, it's more kind of expected that you'll do like a kind of a sexy scene for certain things. And that's turned a lot of people off from romance, because there is a difference between erotica and romance. So it's it was kind of expected of me that I would do something extremely horny, because again, I am the vampire lady, the nipple lady, so that's kind of my brand.
par for the course.
I did work for a kink publishing house for a long time, so it is kind of my deal. It's kind of my thing. But then people are just like, oh, I'll just skip the parts. And I'm going, well, that's 3 chapters worth of content for some of these things. And although the first book doesn't have that much in it, it's got 3 kind of explicit scenes. The original plan was a lot more heavy-handed than that, but I had to split the book into 2 because it was so long. And I thought to myself, well, that's a lot of content people will just be skipping. And it didn't sit right with me. And I wouldn't expect anyone else to do it. Like it's very much a labour of love for me to be able to turn around and do it.
No, that's
vampire books have so much sex in them. When I was 16, I read a vampire book about and for teens, and they had full hand. Yeah, there's a lot of very, very highly eroticized vampire stuff, even for teenagers, which I don't mind. But I think there should be warnings with it. Like with what I've done with my website is I put content warnings on so people can go through it and see what they're getting. And I wish that was more normal. And I hope it will become more normal.
No, I think it's just it always. It was just really interesting to see, because again, I don't read a lot of. I mean, would you regard yours as erotica or romance? I want to make sure I'm getting that right.
Romance with erotic scenes. It's not
Cool.
erotica. Erotica is classified by how much porn there is versus plot.
Ah, right. Okay.
Basically.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it's distinguished. And mine's is romance that has elements of kink and sex in it. That's the way it works, because there's more plot and there's more character development than erotica, where it's very much based on you know, it's the fanfic trope of, you know, plot, what plot, it's just porn, you know.
Yeah.
Which is great. If people enjoy that, that's fantastic. I've also written erotica before, just for the hell of it. But it's, you know, I wanted to do something that was more romantic and had more of a plot and something I could explore, like the ideas in my head that I have around vampires and werewolves that I didn't know what to do with until my friend Jenny kind of put the idea in my head. So
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the things that, like, obviously, I'm not a massive, like, romance novel reader, but I'm one of those folk who, like, my relationship with reading's been a weird one, to say the least. I absolutely loved reading throughout, like, from primary school all the way out through high school. University sucked the love I had for reading out of me completely. Just because of a mixture of stress and hating it, and then I really picked up like reading again this year, so I really do like quite enjoy everything. But I really enjoyed your world building, and I'm still enjoying your world building. On the, like, again, I'm just gonna say there is maybe some light spoilers, and we're gonna try and touch on specific things. But the way that you, from a kind of like societal basis, built up the vampires and the werewolves in your book was really interesting. And I liked how, like, the one scene which I thought you were definitely getting your like experience with British politics across is obviously the Parliament scene, where the main man Vlad goes and attends Parliament. I was just thinking about Tories the entire fucking time.
yeah.
I suppose how much of that was influenced by like Westminster. I have to ask the politics questions, folks. Okay.
A huge part of it. There's even been some astute people who have realised that the vampires are a metaphor for the English nobles that get sent over to kind of colonise Ireland with Erie. And you have the kind of the foreigners that end up running the place. But it's very much, you know, a lot of it's informed by my experiences with politics. I was very, very active in Scottish politics until I moved over here, and I'm still active. I'm just active from over here.
From afar.
From afar, because I can't really be active over here yet because I'm not a citizen, I'm just a resident. So I was very much involved in politics when I was younger. And it really, my dad was a huge informant on like my outlook on certain things and class struggle. I mean, I grew up with the whole Maggie Thatcher milk snatcher. That was like a common thing in our house. So it's very, it's very much based on my own experiences of class struggle and class warfare. I'm also from a family that is heavily influenced by poverty and immigration. Like that was another factor for my parents grew up in post-World War II Glasgow, where it was made abundantly clear that nobody gave a shit about anybody north of London. You know, it was very, like, my parents grew up in a tenement slum.
That's sadly still the case.
And it was very much, you know, the idea of, well, politics won't save you unless you organise and do it yourself, which is very much what I grew up with, was the idea that you have to be involved if you want the world to be a better place. So that's very much Fangs as a little bit of a soapbox for me occasionally in terms of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, I mean, obviously the stuff that Vlad kind of does in his management of the Erie, a lot of the stuff that has been introduced is very progressive. You've obviously got what I imagine is essentially your kind of wind farm type thing for, I'm not sure if it's an energy thing or if it's milling or whatever it is, but obviously Vlad gets very heavily involved in a lot of the progressive policies around the Erie. I think
he loves the boom of the industrial age. He loves the promise of the industrial age, and a lot of his things, I actually took inventions from that kind of the 1880s onwards. There was a lot of things that we were doing which got put aside in favour of coal. There was a lot of things that would have been, you know, in Scotland as well. They had the trains that were, you know, they were off the ground and they were powered by steam and air. Those were all a lot of his stuff are things that would have existed back then, but they were kind of shelved in favour of the more efficient and, you know, more profitable coal and oil, which we now see. You will see him becoming more and more progressively obsessed obsessed with solar power, which I think is I think I'm extremely funny. You've got a vampire that's
Yeah,
obsessed with
I
solar
love
power.
that. That's amazing. That's
So it's
so
that
good.
kind of, you know, it's the but I look at, I mean, I have another book as well that I'm working on that's not romance, and it's very much based on the fact that in the Victorian era and the Edwardian era there were people who were talking about how coal is not sustainable.
I need to meet this
You
man.
know, oil is not
Yeah.
sustainable, gas is not. They were looking at it and they were looking at the pollution it was causing, and they're going, this isn't right, we need to be doing this, this and this, and they all got told, don't be ridiculous.
No funny business.
And now, 100
And
years
now
later,
our
we're all going,
planet's
"Ah,
dying.
heck." Yeah, but
Hooray!
even then there were but even then there were people that were conscious of it and they were
Yeah.
trying to fight back against it, and I find that fascinating that there were people who were trying in that day and age to make things that would work with it. And Vlad's kind of my excuse to kind of delve into that and go, well, you're a vampire with 400 years of lived experience, what else are you going to do? And the
Yeah.
answer is you could do nothing. You could mope around in your tower being depressed and drinking blood, or you can do what Vlad does, which is a mixture of the two. And he actually does put the work in because he wants things to be better. He wants people to have better futures because he's seen what happens when no one puts any effort in.
Who are you?
Sorry, we're getting crucifixed and or crossed.
Present your
So Jessica will moan at me if I don't make this distinction, but a crucifix has Jesus on it. A cross doesn't. And I always get it wrong. So I think I refer to them all the time as crucifixes. But yeah, Jesus. Oh, that is a crucifix. It does have Jesus. We're fine.
Well, that's something I can do for you.
Like, this man was absolutely fucking us with a crucifix until he was like, okay, you're not doing anything.
What are the implications of crucifix versus cross and crucifix? The implication is that there's tiny Jesuses in the on her nipples. That's where that is. Unfortunately, thank you for asking such a horrible question.
I really need to. I really need to revisit that story because I would love
The
to
nail
just read
what
it.
story? Oh
yeah.
God.
You have
Do you have it to hand?
Yeah, it's always here. Oh, hi Holly. Hi.
I'd love a link of it. I'm not gonna do a reading. We did a reading on the charity stream, which is coming up for a year since that charity stream, which is pretty nuts.
It is.
But yeah, I want to save a copy of it on my phone so I can sensibly
Hurt
chuckle
people
at
with
it. Yeah, inflict psychological damage on anyone who annoys me. I'm a victim too. You seem like the expert. This is not real. Sorry, I've kind of just been like, I've been going through the conversations while being chatting. The chat here is way more exciting than the chat in game, but
I've been
he's
hunted
like,
down in the
yeah.
streets and attacked. I'm
Excellent.
here.
If someone can save that link and put it in the Discord for me, that would be
Then if you are not
perfect.
a vampire,
Also, I'm not sure if my Discord links actually post. If anyone would like to join my Discord, it's available by doing !Discord in the chat.
what is going on?
But you're all more than welcome. I'll say that Joy's in there. That's a bit more exciting than just me.
I do lurk in there.
Help me then.
Help me find the culprit.
We're gonna go through all of this stuff.
If you'll first tell me why you opened this door.
Cheers, Tristan. Appreciate it.
I followed a trail. The scent of blood from a recent victim.
So another thing that I
Well,
like
see,
about
I do
sorry.
love this character though. I do love this guy and I love his story arc in this game.
Yeah, mustache man.
Chasing the same shadow.
That's how I
Yes.
refer to everybody who has a mustache. We're currently doing a Dark Souls 2 playthrough where I've got a character as a mustache, and he's built like a kind of lumberjack, but he's got just this giant, broad, curly mustache, and he's just mustache man.
Indeed. Yet I heard his voice in my head.
Can I ask what the predict with channel points is? I'm not actually getting to see the full
You've no idea
thing,
what
but
you're
what is the prediction?
No.
Is I going
Find the monster.
something?
He's mine. How will you
Is I going to die?
Oh. In this game or just in real life? Or I'm expecting someone to come and club me in the back of the head by the end of the stream.
Just one of the cats behind you with a club.
And I don't know where one of the cats is. If I die to the first boss. Ah, okay, I see. I'll demand answers.
The answers to my questions. Then I can only wish you good hunting. And pray we shall meet
There's a
again.
holly mop. Hello. You dancing? Yeah.
I was gonna say I need my cats to enter the room so I can make remarks about them.
If Swansea is not my attacker, it means somebody else came here tonight.
Right, so now we've got to, like, this is really the intro area, if I can remember, and I need to fight a boss,
To the city.
and then hopefully not die. So there's like a dead lad
Body
here.
is still warm. This man has just been drained of blood.
Oh, examine the
This
outfit.
man was armed. He tried to defend himself.
Okay, examine the
This
wounds.
corpse has been dried of its blood. Just like
So another thing I really like about Vlad in Hunger Pangs is
What's this?
like how he's also like annoyingly involved in all of like, or how he kind of perceives him as being annoyingly involved in all of the policies he likes. So like he's manning the clinic and working in the clinic, and then he does like a wee bit elsewhere. I do love that.
He's all over the shop. He's all over the shop. He really is. He's very much, if a vampire, you know, if someone's 400 years old and they've got ADHD, that's basically he's the closest you'll get to the inside of my own head and the way that I jump around from thing to thing, basically.
It is great because it's kind of like a fuck it, why not? Like I might as well. Oh, apparently I didn't get the chance to do that opportunity attack there, but I'm getting better at killing people. If that's, I suppose that's quite good if you're a vampire. Because this guy's a doctor, right? He probably didn't kill that many people when he was cutting about in the hospitals in the trenches, right? Or was he a combat
Yeah, Dr.
guy?
Reed is. Dr. Reed has seen combat, if I remember. He talks about how, I mean, he's got a gun and everything else that he brings back
yeah.
from the front. So
I wasn't sure if that was kind of like just standard military issue and he was like in a tent for the majority of it, but that's fair. Well, see, we go. I think I remember actually seeing this. All right, okay. So there's various resistances in this game. There's physical, and there's orange indicates medium resistance, red indicates high resistance, but they're basically can be total fucked by stun. So we'll do that. Oh. Oh my god. See I remember the shotgun attacks in this being absolutely brutal. But we'll just constantly stun this guy.
I'm always impressed by how like resilient the humans are.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Like,
I'm not sure if I could be bit in the neck that much and still be going, you know?
like I feel like when you know when they're fighting the werewolves and the other vampires, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. The humans are like, Jesus Christ, dude! I mean, how much do you lift? What are you doing?
It's like someone's
Man's
been
taking his spinach. You know what I mean?
doing their neck exercises for days. But no, it isn't. I mean, London in 1918 looks fucking shit. I'm not gonna lie, it looks crap. As in, sure, it's got all the kind of grandness of a kind of, you know, old city, but at the same time, I can imagine the smog being pretty crap.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of peak, like, well, maybe not peak industrial age, but like post-war, like, I mean, I can't imagine there was too much quality of life, too much quality of quality of living. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, I think to me it really encapsulates like when you're in these kind of murky areas and the very rundown areas, it's very much showing the class divide, which I really like in this game. Because when you get later on in the game, you do go into the better parts of London, and it's night and day. You can literally walk around as a vampire and nobody blinks. But when you're walking around in the lower districts where, you know, they've got guards posted, and let's be honest, the guards are there not only for you, but they're there to keep the other people in there as well.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really good way of showing class divide in this game, which I've not really seen. I think Dishonored's maybe one of the only other games I've seen that does it like that.
Yeah.
But it makes it very, very starkly obvious, the class divide. And then you have Jonathan, who is an upper class vampire. And then he's in these kind of dingy areas, and that's where he only faces the kind of more monstrous vampires. You know, when he's in upper London, he's only facing off against the human type vampires. So.
Because there's the kind of, don't want to say Megan vampires, but I'm pretty sure we're about to encounter, this is our first boss, kind of mini boss type person.
Yeah.
If I remember. So we'll...
They don't look human, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is, if I remember correctly, maybe not actually, maybe he's okay.
Bedeviled. I must put it down.
Oh no, he's fucked, yeah, we're good. Yeah, he's fucked. Like, not, I mean, he's like pure scabby. Okay, we'll give him a bite. So this is our first boss. If I die, then I'm pretty sure people get to laugh at me or something. I still don't know what the poll actually means, but oh.
We're
Come on.
just taking bets. I think we're just taking bets among ourselves.
Oh no, a cat's just entered the room. The perfect distraction. Is this you trying to throw me off so I'll lose? That's Aoife, everyone. You're gonna have to move her back a wee bit. Oh, come on, fuck. Ah! Ah, you've let her attack me. Fucking hell. Okay, let's see how we do. Right, we're going okay, I think. I forgot, I've got that super attack. I need to use that more often. Because that's the way to do. Sorry, if I just put her fucking claws right through my t-shirt there, that was... that was pain. Hey! Oh, apparently we hint failed? Oh dear. Okay, I've probably already fucked this run, so we might end up just doing a chill kill everyone run. Or something else, I don't know.
I forgot about the hints, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you in there?
Kind of on point that the first boss is a bishop. You're quite right.
I'm a doctor. You're suffering from shock.
I must return
Oh,
to my
here she
love
is.
to stray without me.
Ugh.
Ollie will go mental. She loves cats.
She loves cats. Come on, you.
Who are you? What do you mean
Okay, I'll
by
let you down.
scout?
Bye-bye.
You truly are a newborn. I should have realized.
She's so
You are the
Aoife's
woman
bed
you
is like directly down here, right?
Like
Because it's right next to the radiator and it's right next to the PC. So she's like nice and warm and just kind of vibing. And she's loud and screamy as well. So she just gets to chill there and be warm. Am I the only one who's uncomfortably vibrating at all the motion from I's background in the emotes? From my background or from the background on the stream? Or
Patience, good fellows.
you get to vibe along? Hey, Dr. Edgar.
Secure my boat. We can leave this awful place.
That looks like a pretty decent boat for 1918. Like,
It looks like it's brand new and he just nicked it.
yeah. He stole it from the Chelsea end of London.
Go with the good Dr. Swansea. He's resourceful and I'm sure he'll take good care of you.
Oh, my wee Aoife isn't a unionist. She would never.
I just need a moment. If I can learn
No.
something about what has happened to William, I'll be a step closer to
Both my cats are yes voters. We only have yes voting cats in this house.
This poor creature can't be my maker. Could it be some subspecies of vampire?
Listen to that, the sneering in this. This could be some subspecies. Pathetic. He's already shown his classist behaviour. It's like, Yes, this is a subspecies of vampire. Disgusting. And then we get to vibe with Edgar on our boat. And
Hopefully change your clothes, because that's not a good look to walk into a hospital with and being, I'm the doctor.
hey, it's fine, I'm the doctor.
We're on our way to the
Don't worry, this blood's not mine.
They'll have a bed for poor Mr. Hampton.
William was... What manner of creature was he?
Predator, prey, villain, and victim. Who can say? The important thing is that he's been...
I feel like there's a lot of commentary to be said about how the vampire's also a doctor.
Who is she?
What woman?
Thank you, Blind Panda Bear, for making sure I keep good posture.
That skull. You must know who
I try my best.
I thought you
It
were
doesn't
dead.
always work.
Shouldn't talk about a
I do
lady
have a
like
kind
that,
of
but I will
supposed to
tell
be
you
quite
she
a
damaged her
comfy
legacy.
thing directly at my back that's supposed to keep that
London is
posture
peaceful as
good,
she
but it
appears
never
from
really
the middle
works.
of the canal. If only that were the reality of the situation.
To be honest, I've always tried to avoid...
I thought that Twilight invented vampires, in
Pembroke
fairness.
Hospital is the last bastion between the rest
No,
of
I
London
didn't.
and the
I
epidemic.
absolutely didn't.
The flu has decimated
Actually, that's a
the
good
war
question,
through
Joy.
Britain.
What do you think of Twilight?
Welcome to the front lines of a plague.
This is where you work, Dr. Swansea.
I am the
It's not
administrator
good, but I
of
also
the
think it gets a
I
lot
thought you were here in service of your mysterious order, the Brotherhood
of unfair
of...
flack because it's very popular with young girls.
First and foremost,
That's
I'm
my
a man of
biggest,
science.
like,
physician,
it's not any worse
like
than a lot of
yourself.
other
Doctor
vampire fiction aimed at young
who I am.
young lassies or whatever, but it is the most popular, so it gets the most hatred.
A surgeon of
I do like that someone commented on that initial silence before he answered the question. Well, it could, yeah.
the blood sample from the corpse.
I mean,
It's not great. It's not my favourite.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems in it. There's a lot of problematic elements, especially with they handled
the werewolves.
the werewolves. Yeah.
I attended 3 of your seminars
And
before the
it's
war. I have the utmost
it's not great.
admiration
It's
for
not
your
that.
research.
The,
That's basically it. It's not great. I'm more resentful of the fact that it spawned 50 Shades of Grey. That's my main complaint with it.
and so actually,
you
that,
know.
that surprisingly links back to another thing we were talking about. Would you say that 50 Shades of Grey kind of brought in that transition from
Brotherhood of St. Paul
like
has dedicated
romance fading to black to just like explicit? I'm not saying
absolutely is.
I'm not saying it was the sole thing,
no,
but
it-
it is the sole thing.
You can see a direct link between the 50 Shades of Grey going mainstream and the prevalence of sex scenes and erotica starting to feature more in romance novels.
I suspect you will not find a better
It's
post
very
on
startling actually to see. It changed a lot of people's attitudes towards reading mainstream sex. And also mainstream sex that's been written by a woman, basically. I mean, it's appalling sex. I mean, it was what when I worked at when I was in the kink industry, we were told to read the book so that we would know what not to do,
for the night shift.
and also if any stories came in with that element to reject it.
Daylight hours.
Jesus.
I mean, it was. I mean,
And have a place to hide.
I got trained up as like a kink safety person because they didn't want to get sued by people that were doing silly things, because the number of injuries that increased after 50 Shades of Grey from bedroom activities was astronomical. Like, you had people using zip ties or bondage, which is an extremely bad idea. But that it features in the books and the movie, so people were like, "Oh, I'll do that," and it's like you're like, that's not. It's not good. It's not good BDSM etiquette. It's not good erotica.
And poor
that
Tristan, poor Tristan in chat.
Oh God, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, Tristan. I'm
Effing-
so sorry.
Effing chat for Tristan. And Pyrrhus, you make a really good point there, is that, like, you know, it being a terrible intro to like BDSM for a whole bunch of people who went into it completely unequipped, and of course a lot of it not being particularly consensual in the book is not great either. Oh look, we've got an overcoat now, that's cool.
We lost 2 more patients. Nurse Scow said she couldn't take it anymore and resigned.
Oh.
Yes, well, I'll make a new rota in the morning.
Th-
In the meantime, find a good bed for Mr. Hammond.
Yes! Get in. I'm not sure if it's just because I experience a lot of pronunciation issues with my surname. So whenever I encounter anyone or anything that I don't know the specific way of saying a word, I will always ask, or I'll always correct it, because it's just the way to do it. So if I do pronounce anyone's fucking name wrong in the chat, I can only apologise. Just kick me up the arse and say it's actually, here's the phonetic pronunciation, and just beat me over the head until I say it properly. So, hang on, I've just noticed that we've got that "Is I going to die?" Is this for the next boss? Is there just a mixture of bosses now? Or do we need to finish that one? What is it? I'm a talent is really what I'm saying. That was the first boss. So we're still on the... Okay, we've done the first boss. It's finishing in 2 minutes. Okay, gotcha. I didn't know if it was on a timer or not. It's my turn. Oh, Clay. Oh. He just...
guy's getting murdered.
Yeah, he just got stabbed and kicked into the Thames.
And now you get to make your first model choice.
No. Chat gets to make its first moral choice. I like to fucking I absolve myself of anything, right? So these fucking, like, eat this prick. Okay.
I won't bite.
Ha! Get it?
You've lost too much blood.
Get it?
You think I didn't know?
Now, one thing I would say, actually, is there is a benefit to not eating people right away. You actually get more experience if you, like, help them a little bit, and then you feast on them. So, I think we should save people for later, and then reap the reward when we solve all their problems, and then kill them. Because at least they then end, like, relatively happy. So let's just be more polite.
Insulting a good Samaritan. Not exactly the way to get rescued.
So we will still kill them, but we'll... Exactly, Hallie. We'll fatten them up first.
I mean, he's suffering from blood loss. I mean, you're not going to get much out of him.
That's a very nasty wound you've got there.
Not if I'll patch him up, and then... then go for it.
Dr. Jonathan Reed.
Name's Clay Cox.
Clay Cox.
I appreciate you helping me to a better place, Doc.
Follow me, Mr.
A
Cox.
better place.
Let me assist
Ho
you
ho.
to a better place.
Poor choice of wording.
I know, it's like trying so hard to mesmerise Clay. I thought he was about to cave that guy's skull in off the crate behind him. Just like grab it and smash his head.
Dance with him the dance of life and death.
That. Okay, so we're gonna release him for now, and then we'll eat him later.
No more. Not tonight. Not like this. I will not take another life.
I will not take another life.
Wise for the huntsman to sometimes let his prey go.
Embrace. He just gives him a wee peck on the cheek and leaves. So, I do have another question on hunger pangs, if you'll allow it, Joy.
Of course.
I say another question is going to be me, again, kind of saying something that I really appreciated seeing, and I can imagine it was probably pulled from, I imagine, some of your own experience, but also, unfortunately, an experience which is all kind of too well known, and it was the scene where you first meet Dr. Allen in the book. And I was wondering if you could maybe give a bit of background. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers because I know that some folk will have not read, and everyone should go and read Joy's book, Hunger Pangs. But could you maybe speak about, obviously, how our man is affected and how he ends up at Dr. Allen's? So I'm going to grab a drink.
So, Nathan, our werewolf character, is returned home from one of the many, many wars currently ravaging the universe world, and he is shot through with silver, which should be fatal for werewolves, but for some reason he survives. And he spends a lot of time in a lot of pain, suffering a lot, and he gets worse and worse and worse to the point where everyone around him thinks, Christ, you're gonna die. He ends up seeking help at Vlad's medical clinic, and Vlad sort of realizes he's having a panic attack, and he kind of immediately disengages and is like, "Oh, come on, we'll go somewhere else nicer." But he doesn't frame it in that context. He frames it as he's just taking Nathan to the pub to have a chat, and he's drawing on his own medical experience, and he realizes that Nathan is probably suffering from some form of metal poisoning, which leads him to his friend Alan, who is a alternative life doctor, which is a nice way of saying necromancer in this world, but he's a necromancer who doesn't have to dig anybody up first. So he's very much a doctor who dabbles with things that are seen as fanciful and or dark arts or something like that. But the biggest thing that sets him apart from the medical community is his postmortem healer. Yes. The biggest thing that makes people not like him in the medical establishment is his belief in patient care and patient quality of life, which is sadly as true now as it was back then, when you had doctors who would just, they assumed because they were educated that they knew everything and that their patients were either hysterical or, and it's a thing that it prevails today, sadly, which my entire blog is dedicated to that. So Alan is very much a form of wish fulfillment for a lot of people, including myself. He's the doctor who listens to you and takes care of you and does what he can, and he does it with kindness. But he is also, fortunately, based on the people I met who have been helping. For those who don't know, I'm chronically ill. I have 3 genetic disabilities, which I just found out about after 30 years of struggling. I got to see some doctors, and they went, "Oh, that's not right." And suddenly a lot of the things I've been misdiagnosed with as being mental health disorders were actually, "Oh no, you're not imagining these things. You're not, dealing with this. This is, you're not making this up. This is actually happening to you." And Alan is sort of the manifestation of every kind doctor I've ever met put into one body. Many people call him just pure wish fulfillment. He is wish fulfillment, but he is also a representation of what medicine could be. And what it should be, to be honest. And part of Nathan's recovery is that Nathan never fully heals from what happens to him, because there are some things you never fully heal from, but he can have a better quality of life, and he can get better to a degree. And he's also the resistance against a lot of fantasy and romance tropes where the injured character or the disabled character either dies or gets cured. There's, a stunning lack of representation of disabled people and chronically ill people who are shown love, and Nathan is ultimately the character who is disabled and chronically ill for the rest of his unnatural werewolf life, but his quality of life is improved by a doctor who does unconventional things, which basically includes listening to him and taking care of him, which should not be unusual, but it unfortunately is for a lot of us.
I think, you've said absolutely everything that I was going to say on the topic, so that's fantastic. But I think that is something that, as someone who, I'm going to just say abled, I'm not sure if that's the right term, but it's something that I kind of clocked onto immediately when I was reading it, and I think the way that you obviously wrote it, and the way that you kind of wrote that, it was the particular section when they're sitting in the pub, and obviously Vlad kind of draws on his experience. He goes, "Oh, well, that sounds like this." And there's a bit of a disagreement between Vlad and Nathan, because Nathan goes, "Oh, well, all my other doctors had said that, I thought there was something wrong, but no, they said I could go home." And I was getting drawn from my own experience here. For those of you who are in the Discord and know my partner Jessica, who's helped out in a whole bunch of streams and helps me out on a daily basis, she obviously had endometriosis that was left undiagnosed for years. Not quite the same as your 30-year stint, Joy, but it was.
It's still agonising. Endometriosis is one of the most painful things that you can have.
agonising, debilitating, and there was many times that we were either in A&E, or there was times that Jessica would go to the doctors, and the first couple of times that Jessica went to the doctor, they ran like all the tests. So I got bloods taken, okay, hopefully we find out a wee bit more, and just gradually we would hope that we would eventually find out what this was, but it was left undiagnosed for so long. Now that's obviously one of the downsides of endometriosis, is it's notoriously hard to diagnose without the kind of exploratory laparoscopic surgery. But there are, and what ended up happening when Jessica went to a specialist, there was that doctor that didn't even need to run the tests and like force Jessica through any of the tests that she'd been through on this journey with all the other doctors, because it was that sounds like textbook endometriosis and I'd like to put you in for surgery. And there are some doctors that just know, and when you finally I remember like being fucking told that. I remember how delighted me and Jessica were when a doctor even just said that. We didn't have a solution. The surgery hadn't happened, but like, and again, I suppose it's more the even being able to confirm in the book Nathan's kind of self-diagnosis was obviously a big relief to him, because he knew something was wrong.
It's the relief. The relief is part of the healing, because you spend so long being told there's nothing wrong with you, and eventually you start to doubt your own sanity. I mean, you're being gaslit a lot of the time when you see doctors. It's a big, not everyone obviously, but it's a very real problem where if they can't see what's wrong right off the bat, they go, how's your history with anxiety? How's your depression? How's this? And the thing is, a lot of these chronic problems lead to anxiety and depression.
Because it's being,
Mm-hmm. And it's for me, it was when people don't understand when you've been chronically ill. People don't understand that you are happy when you get a diagnosis, because the diagnosis means there's hope. People think to yourself, well, why would you want to be diagnosed? And you're going, because I know at last I'm not bonkers. I know there's something I can potentially do for this thing that I live with daily, and I'm not being told it's in your head. That is a huge part of healing, is the relief of finally having a diagnosis. When I finally got my for those unaware, I've had chronic pain my entire life. I've had problems with joints moving and everything else. I've been told by numerous rheumatologists over the years, there's no way you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. You don't, you're not flexible enough. Your muscles don't move enough for that. Your joints, you're healthy. You just, you've got, one of the diagnoses I got most recently was diffuse chronic pain disorder, which is basically you've got chronic pain and we don't know why.
If I'm to stay
And
until my research
but
is
there was a doctor who I was going to see for other problems I was having, and I was describing what was happening to me, and he says, you need to go see this specialist because this sounds like this to me. I had said to him, I think I have a mast cell disorder. And a lot of doctors are very skeptical of mast cell disorders because they don't understand what it is. It challenges everything they know about allergies. And allergies are only really something that have really become a medical focus within the last 50, 60 years. So when this doctor said to me, I think you would benefit from seeing this person for this mast cell disorder. And I was like, right, yeah, fine. And I expected to go into her office purely to get diagnosed with a mast cell disorder. She shook my hand and she looked at how my joints moved and she said to me, you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And it explained my entire life from in utero health, from when I was born 3 months premature, and it explained everything my mother had gone through, everything her mother had gone through. And I was suddenly just sitting there and I was devastated with gratitude and relief because someone finally believed me, and not only believed me, but there was hope for what I could do for managing it. Because a lot of people say, well, there's no cure for it, so what do you do about it? Well, you manage it. Just because there's no cure doesn't mean you don't work on it.
Where is this morgue?
I really like the way
because there's no
you...
cure doesn't mean yeah.
Go on, sorry.
I'm rambling, but it's just,
No,
when a lot of doctors say to me there's no cure for it, and I'm going, well, what do I do to manage it? oh, well, you can do this, but there's no cure for it. I don't care. What improves my quality of life? What will make me happier? What will reduce my pain? What will prolong my life? And a lot of doctors, when you get diagnosed with something that's incurable or complex, a lot of them just kind of give up a wee bit. And it's disheartening as a patient. But you do get used to advocating for yourself, and you get used to building a community around you. The community of, Tumblr used to be a fantastic community for chronically ill people until they started, they purged a lot of our tags, unfortunately. But the sense of community I have with people, it's what keeps you going. Because even though you might get better and you might recover from things, you don't forget the people that helped you. And I still hang around in a lot of, there's a lot of Reddit forums where I don't belong anymore because I'm technically cured for a lot of the things I had as a result of the undiagnosed stuff. But I'm still there because those people gave me resources and they gave me time, and your time and your energy is precious when you're ill.
I think that's
and it's something, I wish doctors understood.
It was interesting because and I think one of the things you said there was really good was you were devastated with relief and gratitude in a way that it's such a big relief when you get that person that confirms what you've been thinking for fucking ages. That it is amazing. But I mean, one of the I remember but even before we'd kind of figured, well, even before Jessica had kind of caught on that it was endometriosis, I remember seeing there was another there was a girl in my year at school who had done a charity thing for endometriosis, and I hadn't seen at that point anything about it, and that kind of got me reading it. And by the time that we were seriously sane, it got to the point where we weren't going to doctors and saying, we've got this chronic pain that's on the right side of my sort of lower abdomen. What is it? You were going into doctors and saying, I think it's this, and it sped up the conversation a wee bit, and eventually we got fucking through to someone. But it does.
But there's
it does
also
mean
there's the risk as well when you turn to a doctor and you say, I think it's this, and they'll get really upset because they're the doctor.
Yeah.
And there's some people that go into medicine who've got an ego who shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I
mean,
I have sympathy for doctors who get burned out of their compassion because they're treated so badly. I mean, let's not kid around. Doctors do not get the help they need to diagnose patients. But there are some of them who just have egos and they don't really care, and it shows. And unfortunately, they're the ones that prevail because they have the mentality that they don't get burned out.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we ran into, and it was, Jessica had been to doctors several times, and we still hadn't found out at this point. And okay, so there's, Jessica, if you don't mind me telling that story, because that was the worst. I attended the doctor with Jessica twice, and the first time was a woman who checked Jessica's stomach and basically pushed down on the pain point. Was just aggressively poking and prodding at it, but was really condescending and almost infantilizing about it. She was giggling and saying, "Oh, there's probably some poo in there," and was fucking just being really odd and joking about like that. And I remember talking to Jessica after, because I think we glanced at each other when she said it, and it was what the fuck was that? That was, that's shocking in terms of the other one. I think, unfortunately, it's also a thing where I feel like a lot of doctors are very happy to play the it's a woman's issue card, which annoyed the shit out of me, because a lot of the time Jessica was coming home with that exact story. Oh, they said it was a woman's issue, and it was funny that when I attended, when there was a male doctor that second time, that chat went out the window because I was in the room, and it made me, and I know that we're kind of we've mentioned this, and you just mentioned it there in regards to doctors do get burnt out, but I remember very much losing a pretty big bit of faith in, like, you know, the whole kind of doctor thing, just because of like how different Jessica, and it was the same doctor that had spoken to her before, and it was just because I was in the room that there was something different being said, and that annoyed the shit out of me. You know, it was one of those things that, you know, the most recent thing I've had in regards to a medical thing was the notorious when I got my appendix out, which people still on stream make fun of me for. But, you know, it was that sort of thing that I woke up one morning, I was in massive amount of pain, phoned NHS 24, they said, you know, oh, just try and go to the toilet and, you know, lie in bed for a bit, and, you know, like, that's fair enough if you're trying to diagnose someone over the phone. You're not going to know everything. But they said, phone your doctor if you need an emergency appointment. And it got to the point that I did. Walked into the doctor's. The doctor went, sounds like your appendix. And it was like, do you want to go to the hospital? I'll go, yeah, I'll go to the hospital. It's like, good. Do you want to wait for an ambulance, which is 2 hours, or do you want to get an Uber? I was like, okay, I'll fucking Uber then. And then my appendix was taken out that night. And that was my experience. So from a diagnosis perspective, I was in and out and done. And then, obviously, you know, compare that to Jessica having similar abdominal pain, but having, when I say similar, I mean similar area, but having to wait 2.5 years to get fucking anything. I was just... raging is how I would say it. I was raging.
It really puts privilege into perspective as well, and it also puts the systemic sexism in medicine into perspective as well. I mean, there was my partner Mothman, who's in the chat. He will not let me go to a doctor I do not know anymore, because I go into the appointment and I come out and I'm in a full-on PTSD meltdown because I've been gaslit. Or I've been told, are you sure you've really got Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? And I'm going, well, the fucking specialist who specialises in this her whole career told me so. So aye, I'm sure. Like, you know, there's one of my most talked about things, I used to talk about a lot in my blog, was I was having extreme chest pains. I couldn't breathe. I phoned my doctor and she says, get to the hospital, get to the hospital. Went up to the hospital and they said, you know, my husband came with me because I was experiencing such extreme pain. It was like and I was having pain in my jaw, which if you're AFAB, pain in your jaw and pain in your chest are often one of the warning signs of a heart attack. It's not your left arm. Your left arm can feature, but it's more likely to be in your jaw, your neck, and your chest, which is what was happening to me. And they looked me over, they did some tests, and he looked at my husband and he said, you know, these women can be quite anxious sometimes.
Fucking hell. Holy shit.
And you could see the moment in his face where he went, you know, because he hadn't even put a stethoscope on me at that point.
Better look into this.
And you could see the moment where he just, you know, Mothman's face just went, you know, he goes very still when he's angry. It's, you know, he goes very, very still and very, very cold. And you could see it on his face, and my quality of care changed immediately. They started doing physical exams, they started ordering, you know, tests. It all came back negative because I wasn't experiencing a heart attack, I wasn't experiencing asthma, I was experiencing pre-anaphylactic, the stages before anaphylactic shock. But unfortunately that happened with a lot of my care. There was times when I presented to the ER, I was in anaphylaxis, but because with mast cell disorders you don't present as typical anaphylaxis a lot of the time, you know, it's, well, you have anxiety, and they give you a Valium, and then Valium is a mast cell destabilizer, so then you go into full shock, you know, and you're going, well, anxiety is not treated with an EpiPen, so it's obviously not anxiety. But there was, until I found the doctors I have now, there was an awful lot of, are you sure you're not just anxious? Are you sure, you know, is your pain really as bad as you're saying it is? Are you just exaggerating it because you need to, you know? And it was very, very demoralizing, but also dehumanizing. I
Yeah.
would go into appointments and I would leave not feeling like a person, which is also it's a huge part of Nathan's characterization is that he spent a lot of time. He's already not told he's a person because he's a werewolf, and there's a lot of interspecies racism, and then there's the fact that he's got an illness that doctors can't seem to see. And that was my for me that was my manifestation of the moment where he gets listened to and he's been told, well, you might die from this, there's no guarantee the surgery will fix things, but he gets that moment of pure resolve where he's going, all right, okay, I was right, fuck all of you. Like, it was very much,
Absolutely fuck every single one of you.
the gratifying rage of being told, yeah, actually, there is something wrong with you, and we're going to try and fix it. It's very much central to my experiences for everything I've dealt with. Nathan unfortunately became the channel for all of that. He had to suffer a lot, unfortunately, because of that. But I think it also gives you the perspective of accurate representation and a lived experience that a lot of people can relate to, whereas a lot of disabled narratives aren't necessarily written by disabled or chronically ill people, and it comes across as really not authentic, and it can also be belittling and sometimes infantilizing. And I mean, the tropes that I hate worse than death is that you get cured, and it's a magical cure because love cures you. Love doesn't cure you. Love gives you the support you need to get where you need to go. That's it.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that was really obvious when I was reading that it was someone who had experience of what kind of Nathan had gone through. It was definitely it was so obvious because it's not. I can imagine someone else creating a much worse version of what you wrote by making it infantilizing. Like, for example, a worse author could have quite easily had Nathan being cured when the silver was removed. Entirely, as in not needing anything. The vampire's healing comes back. It's absolutely fine. And I thought it was really good to not. And again, I'm not an expert.
It was my own wish fulfillment. It was my own desire to see someone like myself, supernatural as they are. It was my desire to see something of myself in fiction, which I don't often get to do.
I was going to say, you telling me you're not supernatural all of a sudden?
It's popular Tumblr myth that I'm actually a vampire, but that's just the anemia. I swear I'm not actually. But it's very... Yeah, Nathan is very much... And the thing is, I wrote Nathan's arc before I knew I had metal poisoning. That's the thing that gets me. It was my brain ticking over, and it was working out what was happening to me before I realised what was happening. It was... For those who don't know, I had mercury poisoning from a contaminated filling in my mouth. And it was causing a lot of problems. It likely contributed to my mast cell destabilization, which I'm not going to try and explain mast cells on a Twitch stream. You're not here for that. But it's kind of those things where if you get exposed to a major infection or a major source of poison, your mast cells go into overdrive trying to save you, and then sometimes they forget how to stop. That's essentially what has happened to me. She's a fae. I grew up next to a fairy mound. Yeah, that's a common joke in our family. My dad once actually left me at a fairy circle, and he said they either don't want you or they don't want you back. That was my dad's reasoning when he left me there. It wasn't just the fact that he walked off and didn't realise I wasn't with him. But it was there's a lot of my problems with being depersonalized and a lot of fighting back to find yourself and to find who you are, and also rationalizing and coming to terms with who you were before these things happened to you and who you are afterwards, because you can live your whole life longing for the person you could have been when you could spend your time embracing who you now are. And that is a big thing that a lot of us are not told when we're diagnosed with a disability or a chronic health problem. We're told you are a diagnosis, or there's no cure for it, or there's this or there's that. And there's no real, even with therapy, my therapist is wonderful, I love her to bits, but when she first started seeing me, she had no concept of being proud of, and being content with who you are as a disabled person. She had no concept of that. And that's very harming, because if you can't find contentment with who you are now as a person, that destroys your entire mentality, it destroys your self-confidence, it destroys your ability to move forwards and to continue healing.
With all the money.
You may never heal from what is physically wrong with you, but that doesn't make you any less worth than anyone else around you. Like, it's you know, you are allowed to feel pride for who you are as you are, not who you could have been, or not because of what you defeated. You are allowed to be proud for who you are in this moment, regardless. So it's very, and that's a big thing with Nathan. He will deal with that for a lot of the arc going forward, where you have people going, "Oh, imagine what he could have been," and Nathan turns around and goes, "No, fuck you. Look at what I am now."
Yeah, because I mean, I think, like, obviously there's the part with the silver, which, you know, obviously helps him, as in, you know, he's not as much pain. You know, it's obviously still it's still impacted him on his day to day, but he's now not living fucking miserably, and he's also able to eat shitloads. I really like that. I really like that scene when you had, and I still can't pronounce the character's name. Is it Didildi or
Fiddledy?
I keep on saying
Think of it.
Diddledy. That's what I was. Is that correct?
Yeah,
It's
fiddledy.
Fiddledy.
You
Fiddledy.
never have your mum or your dad trying not to swear and they say fiddledy dee. That's
Yeah,
what he's based
yeah.
on. He's based on one of my dad's old bosses he was a former soldier in World War II. He used to swear a storm, and then as soon as us kids walked in, he'd go, "Oh, fiddledy dee," and that's who he's based on. So that's why I gave him that name.
That's
It's funny.
comes across. it really does. And it's funny how, like, I do see quite a lot of Scottish. I'm not sure if it's just my reading of it, but I see a lot of Scottish culture in the characters, and like a lot of probably Scottishization of the, like, in the characters of the book. But the thing I was meaning to say there was the one thing that I really liked was also the hearing aid that's designed by Dr. Allen as well. Again, it's like focusing a lot more on the quality of life aspect, rather than the, "Oh, I've cured your hearing," which, you know, again, you've probably seen quite a lot of in a lot lesser books, or by lesser authors. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does to me. I mean, for me, it's very. Oh, hi, Polly. Hi. Sorry, she's trying to get up. Hello. There you go. There's a lot of me in the book. That's undeniable. There's a lot of me. There's a lot of Scottishness, and there's a lot of things that I'm trying to form a thought about it. But for me, there is a lot of Scottish characterization. There's a lot of that culture in it, especially with Nathan's family, and there's a lot of people who recognize that. It's one of the things where I get people going, "I can notice that Nathan's code switching," you know, because he does that very kind of, you know, I don't know if people are aware of this, but a lot of Scottish people will, if they're speaking to people who aren't Scottish, they'll sometimes lessen their accent to be understood more. It was actually something I was trained to do, and it was it's a form of microaggression where it's, well, you need to sound more English to get a better job. That was a big thing when I was growing up. It was very much, you know, you need to sound more British if you want to be taken seriously in a professional setting. And for Nathan, that is characterized in that his accent thickens when he's annoyed, or he's excited, or because that's the thing that happens with me as well. But he also, when he goes home, his dialect and speech patterns shift, and he switches from more British Imperial to a more Scottish rhythm of speech, and it's much more, there was parts of it where a lot of my editors edited out because it would not have made sense to an audience who
Many thanks, Doctor.
Joy is very supportive of both horny, sexy vampires and flirty, sexy vampires. Very true. But yeah, there's a lot of things with Nathan where it's very culturally informed in the way that he switches between things. You know, he has his respectability. On the one hand, he's part of what is essentially, you know, the British Empire in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he has that area where, well, you're from the north, you know, and they don't really give a shit about the north in that setting, and it's still a very true thing.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah. Yeah, or oh, your accent is so weird, and then becomes more aggressively Scottish. That's a very big thing, but it took me a long time as an adult in a professional setting to actually be comfortable with using my Scottish accent. I do it when I'm at home. It's less of a thing over here because I try to avoid a lot of there's a lot of fetishization of my accent over here, which I'm not comfortable with. So I tend to, if I don't know the person, I will tend to put on a very telephone voice, and I try to lessen it because then you don't have the weird conversations. But it took me a long time when I was living and working, even within the UK, to actually use my full Scottish accent.
I think I think that's definitely one thing that I've kind of experienced, and obviously I was on the other side of the world and I was speaking different languages, but unfortunately what kind of comes to the fore when you're abroad, and it's just the state of the world, but obviously there's like big expat communities in China, so regardless of whether you want to or not, you'll always end up bumping into the other Western people, because you stick out like a sore thumb. You know, I've spent time in I've spent pretty much 2 years of my life in China, and the problem that you then encounter is you're mixing with an expat community, which are essentially just a bunch of immigrants, but they decide to term themselves expats because it gives them a sense of superiority.
Yeah.
But you also meet a lot of rich people. Now,
Yes.
I would say I'm not from a wealthy family at all. I wish I was, but having to engage those types of communities just by the state that I was being there, I feel when I went to China the first time, I ended up getting my accent really quite like defanged, for want of a better term. But it really did kind of fuck up my accent a wee bit, and I'd say I probably used to speak in more kind of broader Scots, but there's a lot of things now, especially because my, like, obviously on Tumblr and stuff, I want to make sure that my stuff can be read as well, so there's a wee bit of a, like, again, sometimes I'll go in it, but then that leads, and I'm not sure if you've experienced, but it leads to like a weird thing where you feel like you're not being authentic when you're using words that you would have used to have said. So like sometimes I'm writing a post on Tumblr and I'll almost say like, saying gonny or canny or dinny or anything in that really doesn't make sense in that sentence, and people will think that I'm throwing in Scots words because my name's I for Scotland and I have to play the part. So it is a weird thing that you kind of run into where you're like,
It can make you feel very performative online.
yeah, and the fetishization doesn't help.
No, I know. It's bizarre. It's wild over here where there's a lot of Scottish pride, and Scottish pride over here is oftentimes a dog whistle for white nationalism. So whenever I'm invited to Scottish events, I go, no thank you, that's not what I'm interested in. But it's, you know, it is very kind of, you get people that do the accent because they think it's funny. You know, you get that whole, the Scottish Twitter and Scottish Tumblr where they're not using actual words, they're just they're just typing nonsense basically, and they think it's what the accent is or what they think the language is, because let's be real, it's a language.
We're gonna say it. We're gonna say it. The
It's a
fucking
language.
Pokemon trainer memes. The fucking Pokemon trainer memes for, I don't know which Pokemon it was, Sword and Shield maybe, but I remember when that plagued Tumblr, and it was a it was a clusterfuck.
I required discretion.
I think I got tagged in that daily for a long time, and
Yeah.
it made me have an irrational hatred for Pokemon. Like people are asking me, "Do you play Pokemon?" I'm going, "Not anymore."
Yeah.
It very much soured me on it because you had people going, "Well, it's not really a big deal. I mean, we're just having fun with it." And I'm going, "You're having fun with my language and my culture, and if we weren't, if you didn't consider us to be, and the thing is as well, Scottish people are not universally white. That's another thing as well.
Yeah.
But we're going, well, because it's white culture, to you it's fine to mock something that's actually been oppressed and things that, it used to be a feature of corporal punishment in my dad's day. If they use Scots words, they get the belt.
Yeah.
You're kind of, even for me, like we used to get told all the time, stop speaking slang, stop doing this, stop doing that, and I'm going, well, it's not, it's my language. So we grow up sort of bilingual. You speak your Scots at home, and then in school you speak the Queen's English. You have to be very precise and enunciated, and I remember one time, I said I'm off. I'm gonna go get my jacket, and jacket's actually a Scots word. It's not just a mispronunciation of jacket. And the teacher went ballistic, and I remember standing there going, "What country am I in?"
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say unfortunately because I love and loved my granny very, very much, but my granny was a teacher, and she would constantly check me for saying water. She was like, she would make sure I pronounced that fucking T, otherwise I wouldn't get any tea myself. It's like, you pronounce your T or you're not getting any tea. So that was kind of how it went. But like my dad's side, and not so much. So like I'd say that it's, I don't know, it's a weird one because I think there still is this weird kind of conflict in a lot of Scottish schools where there is that Queen's English side, but they're happy to have the whole class do Burns recitals. Like
they're happy to do the Scottishness that was appealing
the
to
English,
the upper class English.
Yeah.
It goes back to the Queen Victoria thing when her and Albert started. Oh, tartan's great. Let's go to the Royal Mile and we'll pretend to be Scottish and we'll be noble savages. And you're thinking to yourself, bloody hell! Like it's really, and that's a holdover from that. The holdover is you speak Queen's English every other day of the year, but Burns Day you're allowed to say a wee poem every now and then.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I chucked out a really shitty meme on Tumblr that was like, the amount of English people who attend Burns nights and they do dress up and they do the whole like noble savage kind of. Like English culture is Morris dancing, right? So do that. you crack on and you do Morris dancing. We'll
you know what? It's quite athletic. Once they get going, it's quite a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Although they do paint their faces black, which is a bit.
A bit problematic.
Just a bit. But good exercise nonetheless.
Yeah. But it is you do get divorced from your sense of culture. And it's called Scottish cringe. We've been using cringe since before it was cool. It's actually a phenomenon called Scottish cringe.
Yep.
And it's it's sort of an ingrained cultural thing where we've been told so often, well, your language is not really a language, it's actually just slang, it's not proper speech, your culture's not really worth anything, apart from when we want to take something from it. And it's very much an informed part of who I am as a person that I now kind of go, well, that's shit, I'm not doing that. But even when I worked at the publishing house, it was an English publishing house I worked for, and they used to refer to me as their civilised Scot because they could understand what I was saying. And that's what they would refer to me as when they would put me over to authors who were English authors or American authors who were doing Scottish accents or Scottish stories. They get it wrong, inevitably. It's hard to do historical things. But there was one American author I will always remember where they were worried about, will I be able to understand her? And I remember this person who I thought was my friend said, oh, don't worry, she's the civilised Scot on team.
Jesus.
And I just had this moment of, all right, I'm not actually welcomed here.
Yeah,
they want me here for my expertise, but they don't actually want me, and they want me to be a certain way. And I remember sitting and and I had this big smile on my face because this was my first career job, and I didn't want to lose it. And I remember sitting there going, I'm not actually valued here, am I?
Nah, it
You know,
definitely
and
doesn't.
it made me very much aware that my
You could start by
supposed civility was the reason I had the job. And I'm going, well, you wouldn't have had your best-selling Scottish romance that year if it hadn't been for me, because it would have been shite. You would have got everything wrong if I hadn't sat there and gone through the dialogue and done all the extra work, the overtime I didn't actually get paid for. But I did it because I thought I was being valued and I thought my input was valued.
Yeah.
And
the thing is,
it
you
was
you
very-
100% need Scottish people to do this stuff. Like, I mean, I think we've got another author in the chat, Tristan, and Tristan's stories are, you know, the books have like really well detailed Scots, and I know that Tristan, you reached out to a consultant to really make sure that you got the Scots language right, because, you know, what we don't want is what we don't want is an American person doing the Scots Wikipedia.
oh god, I.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know that story, an American teenager decided to take it on themselves to create Wikipedia articles in Scots, using how they thought it sounded phonetically, and created essentially the entirety of Scots Wikipedia like that.
Which people were then using for references.
Which people were using for references, which is an absolute nightmare in so many horrible ways. That I was very fucking angry when I read that. I was just like, was not impressed. But I think another thing you mentioned there, Joy, was that was really interesting, is obviously the Scottish cultural cringe, which I've spoken about on Tumblr a couple of times. You've definitely spoken about on Tumblr a bunch of times, and we've both encountered it everywhere we go. But I think the worst thing about that is it kind of permeates everything to do with Scotland. Like, there's a massive issue when it comes to nearly everything, and I don't, like, I mean that in an interesting way. Obviously, there's the political side. You could argue that the cultural cringe might have played a wee bit into the results of the independence referendum. There's we can't quite do this, you know, kind of insular, like, almost like parochialism.
It's a lack of self-belief in ourselves as a country, and our ability to self-govern and our abilities to succeed. But then again, we have consistently, you know, the most recent one that I remember you posting was, Scotland failed to meet its green target by something. They framed it as like this massive failure, and we failed it by 1% or something mad like that. And you're going,
And
that's
it was
still progress.
it was 100%. It was literally 100% renewable energy production or something like that, and the BBC ran it with a Scotland falls short of its target. Bearing in mind, we were probably the only country that fucking set a target as ludicrously high as that.
It was astronomically high. It was really ridiculous, and I'm amazed we even got close to it.
I mean, like, it was the exact same thing with the trees story from the previous year. There was a thing with the trees where it was like, Scotland fails to meet its tree planting target, and we'd planted something like 10,800 hectares of trees, compared to like 2,000 in England, which England's much bigger geographically. Like, there's no reason why they couldn't have done that wee bit more. Like, again, it shouldn't be a comparison thing, but when it comes to media, particularly in the UK, it becomes a comparison just by default, because the devolved devolved governments, devolved administrations, whatever, they are spoken about in regards to their failures. When we don't have a BBC, I mean, the BBC have been fucking hopeless for the past a decade plus, really. People love to think of the BBC as BBC World Service, the amazing drama, David Attenborough doing a nature documentary, but the current affairs politics side is fucking rotten to its core. It is vastly decaying, and it's not fit for purpose. So, I mean, obviously there was people saying how the end of the license fee would really cause a big issue for the BBC. They wouldn't be able to produce like X amount of content. But the biggest, like, I didn't see many people weeping for the BBC. Basically, it wasn't really something that people cared too much about. There was only a handful of people who were really upset that it was going to be a
You know
thing.
how I know the BBC is going downhill? Because my mother actually referenced Channel 5 News the other day. And that was... I went, you're
That's when
watching
you
Channel
know.
5?
That's when you know.
And humble guardian.
But I mean, I think with the Scottish Cringe, it does unfortunately impact things kind of beyond just politics. It's like I don't want to get too much into like sport, like because obviously the national team, like the national football team, is a kind of like a running joke that the Scottish football team's not going to do that well, that kind of thing. We're a wee bit more confident when it comes to rugby, but even still, there's this kind of like underlying, well, if we fail, it's okay because I knew we were going to fail kind of thing. And unfortunately, that also stretches to the world of business, where like the amount of times when through work, you've been looking for like investment for like the next big idea or the next, the next Scottish company that's really gonna like, where's the big Scottish companies? And I know that we live in a world where like large corporations obviously shouldn't run absolutely everything, but like where's the really big Scottish companies? You've got things like Skyscanner, which if you've ever really booked a flight and have been looking for that kind of comparison website, Skyscanner does it. There's also a betting website called FanDuel, which I don't think we should be particularly proud of. But like the amount of times where through work you've heard the story of, oh, you want investment, go to London. We're not confident enough to invest in companies here that are doing great things, but that's for the big boys. Go see the big boys down in London, and they'll have the money and they'll believe in you. And of course, you then go down there and you're always met with a little bit of skepticism because you're a Scottish company, and unless you've got 2 million in revenue, it's not going to happen. So it's a weird. I feel like I'm on a bit of a soapbox at the moment, but it's funny how even that kind of attitude, that like lack of belief in things that are made here and things that are built up here, it has a detrimental effect.
Bizarre to me because we built so much based on industry.
We invented the fucking TV.
I know, we were such an industry, there's a lot of things to not be proud of that Scotland did under the British Empire. There's a lot of things that need to be changed and made to be held accountable for. But we built so much. We were such an industrious country. We powered a lot of those things. And the idea that we cannot support industries is false. And it's based on the idea. We just got gutted after World War II. We got completely gutted and nothing was done to put that infrastructure back. And one of my pals, her dad was one of the last draftsmen for designing shipbuilding, and shipbuilding was such a huge thing for Scottish industry and all those things. And he's one of the last few Scottish draftsmen left for shipbuilding, and you're going, how did that just die? We used to supply ships for everywhere, and it's very, it also impacts health as well. When I got my diagnosis for Ehlers-Danlos, I told my mother about it, and she was told, oh, you'll have to go to London for diagnosis because we don't diagnose it up here. There's no specialist up here.
Yeah.
And you're going, how are you supposed to, if you're on the NHS, how are you supposed to afford going to London to get diagnosed by somebody who's actually, he works private most of the time?
Yeah.
And you're going, Scotland needs to have, medically and even with dental, you know, a lot of the specialised treatments you need to head to London for, and you're going, that's not good. You know, you need to have these things in your community, or if not in your direct community, at least within travelling range of where you are, and you're not having to go to what is considered to be, I mean, let's be honest, the central hub of the UK is not central.
No, not
You
at
know,
all. Fuck
it's,
no.
and it's inaccessible in terms of funds, travel, and you know, it's not an ideal way for things to be, and there does need to be change. It's And that's as Tristan pointed out as well. There's no, you know, advanced abortion services for trans healthcare either. There's a lot of things that we do fall short of, but we don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to. We just need to be able to control a lot of our own funds and a lot of. In case you hadn't guessed, I'm pro-independence, by the way, in case anyone's not aware.
Yeah, can I just say, if you weren't, you wouldn't be here.
It's, you know, it's very kind of, you grow up with the idea that you're not good enough for a lot of things, and it sticks with you, and it sticks with your whole I mean, it sticks into your career as well. You know, you can, another example, when I was in the publishing house, I was there because I was technically a specialist for some of the things they wanted, but I still allowed myself to be treated like shit because I believed that was what I deserved, because that was normal. And it's very kind of, it is cringe. It's absolutely cringe. You cringe in your soul sometimes because people. I mean, it was an example my mother gave me the other day. We were talking away. She says, "I do wish you know, you wouldn't say whatever." I can't remember what I said. I think I called somebody Glaker or something.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I wish you wouldn't use those words." And I'm going, "Oh, would you rather I used expletive word here?" And she's going, "No." And I'm going, "Well, Glake, it's a nicer word. Let me use the word." But you do. I mean, for her, it's very much she cringes when she hears it because she's been from her childhood. It was. You know, it was drilled into her, the way you are is lesser. And for me, I grew up with a very angry pro-independence father who was very much, no, to hell with that, you are who you are and be proud with it. But it took me until at least my late 20s before I became fully confident with going, actually, I'm not going to cringe from this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put myself down, I'm not going to do this. But it's a lifetime of habit. And being told, well, I mean, there's still people that go, it's not really a language, it's a dialect. Well, it is a language. Because the dialect shifts between, you can be in Scotland and we'll all be speaking the same language, but your dialect shifts every 5 miles.
Yeah, I mean, I have a wee bit of an issue. Like, when we do talk about this, particularly, I mean, I always get someone on Tumblr who pulls out the, you know, oh, a language is a dialect with an army and a navy. And, you know, like, I totally get that as a, like, that is, you know, it's, I imagine how, you know, languages were perceived as languages, but like Scots law was written in Scots, right? Like Scots law that still exists to this day. Fair enough, there is English versions of Scots law now, but like the law of the land was written, like, it wasn't just filled with fucking slang words from some guys down the pub. It was like a language that was used. And obviously, if we really want to go that far, like Adam Smith, who everyone tells obviously Wealth of Nations and all that kind of stuff, but like he wrote in Scots and then like burned a lot of his manuscripts that had Scots in it because he was suffering from the cringe. Really, was what he was struggling with. So there's lots of, you know, obviously from the stuff we were talking about earlier with teachers, and all the rest of it, it's still always kind of amazing that, you know, we're still in a position where people are still cringing a bit at and not calling Scots a language. Sorry, the reason why I'm running around here like a dickhead is I can't find this one fucking nurse. I've got to find Nurse Dorothy Crane and she just doesn't seem to be anywhere. So that's why I've been running around for the past 20 minutes.
Isn't she somewhere else on the map at this point?
She might be. In which case,
I think I remember that she's not in this area anymore. I think she's actually somewhere else.
Is she down the bottom left? Is she?
She might be, if I remember. I remember I wasn't able to find her.
She's fucking over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I eavesdrop? E. There we go.
You're sure you don't come back with me?
Press E to easdrop.
I see someone at the hospital.
Be careful. You look so bad they may keep you. as a
I like.
patient.
By the way, I've got no idea what's happening in this game. I've been enjoying the conversation too much. I've not even been reading the fucking dialogue.
When you go
It's
back to
just
Whitechapel,
we're going for it.
you may find this.
We'll try and kill one more boss, and then we'll
Pass for a
call an
free
end
medical
to
exam by
tonight.
the
Normally I do the 8 till 10, sometimes a wee bit earlier than 8, but we'll go on a wee bit more.
I think we're all having fun though. I mean, you're
We are.
93 people watching at present, and I'm not sure how much of them are watching Vampires or they're just listening to us rattle on.
I think they're listening to you, Joy. Because if I had this consistent viewership, I would be a Twitch partner, which would be nice. So maybe and basically I need you to come on every single stream for a month, and then I'm like good to
You
go.
can just pull me in, I don't mind. I've got plenty of stuff I can rattle on about.
Yeah, we just talk shite every single week.
That seems fine for me. I get to use my accent, that'd be good for me.
Nah, that's good. You can have your weekly dose of Scots. Sorry, was that Mothman laughing behind you?
It was, he's in the office.
I heard that time. I haven't been picking up any background noise, and I just heard sort of a laugh that wasn't yours. So I was like, hang on a second.
That deep, mysterious laugh in the back. Yeah, him and the dog are. I've got a couch in my new office that I finally finished building, and him and the dog like to sit there and watch me work, basically. So they're right behind me at the moment. So if you hear any noises, that's them.
Nice. So, we've not killed anyone yet, and we've also got a shitload of XP actually that I probably should have spent. Oh god.
You do. You've got a lot of skill points to spend and upgrade a lot of your stuff.
No. Oh my god, I can't see
I thought you were
anything
good.
down here. I was doing fine until I wasn't there.
Survive the boss and you're gonna die to some random.
I know. This fucking hell, this prick, man. What the hell? How? Oh no, there's two of them! Fuck! Oh, this is...
To deadpan.
Well, that was just
Neutral facial
fucking shit.
expression.
See, exactly. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't doing any combat while we were talking there. Could be blank, could be flat, maybe? It depends if it's like, if they say something flat, maybe?
Yeah, flat. It depends on the context of other
Yeah.
things as well. Because that you could very much, I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying something's deadpan. He could say, you know, they said blankly, or they said with a, you know, a pointed look is a way I like to do it as well, because then you know the character's giving you a wee bit of cheek off to the side. Try not to reveal what they're thinking. Facial expression kept carefully neutral is one of my favourites, rather than saying deadpan, because deadpan to me is a little bit more sort of humourful. There's nothing wrong with just saying their expression is neutral. That is, there's, you know, unless you've been saying it a lot and you're trying to avoid saying it again. Sometimes it's easier to just say what you mean rather than trying to find a clever way to say it.
Wait, you can do that?
Oh, aye. That's one of those. One of the things. Unreadable is a good one as well. But it's one of those things in schools they tell you you'll find different ways of saying this, but oftentimes it's easier just to say what you mean. And then, obviously, if you're repeating yourself too much, you should spice it up a wee bit. Find different ways of saying it. But you'll go through a lot of writing people. They're doing everything they can to avoid the word said, or they're doing everything they can to say things as plainly as possible. And sometimes you just need to be as plainly as possible.
Sometimes people just say stuff.
Mhm.
I think that's. I feel like if I try to write something, that like I don't know, if I tried to write something maybe 2 years ago or something like that, I feel like I would have really fallen into the trap of trying not to say said everywhere. And I get that you don't need to say said everywhere, but sometimes, like, there was a kind of I feel like there was actually an English teacher rule at school where they really did push the come up with anything other than said, and like overuse of kind of like adverbs as well.
Which it's a good experiment, but it's also not how to write. It's a good way of getting people to think outside the box, but it's not lasting. It's not how you're supposed to write everything.
Yeah.
It's a good exercise. It's a good way of training you how to not, to do things differently and to alter how you write and to, have different flow and different dialogue and, different meanings for things. But it's not how you should write every single sentence, which is a lot of people don't realise that when that's all they get is that kind of rudimentary, avoid said, avoid this, avoid that. Well, no,
Yeah.
no, you still use them. You avoid using them repetitively, is which is the same for anything. And even finding new and different ways to say things becomes repetitive after a while. So, just in terms of the rhythm it creates in your sentence structure.
Got your chat. You're getting everything tonight. You're getting writing tips. You're getting a deep analysis of Scottish cringe. You're getting health.
Are you injured?
You're getting vampires.
I need to get out.
Oh man, we ran into a guy called Oswald.
Help you, but you must calm
Oh,
down.
I remember Oswald.
Please, take a deep breath and tell me your name.
Okay. Okay.
He's Oswald Thatcher. We've got to
All right.
kill him.
Do you think
Think of everything we can stop from happening if we kill this one man.
All we need to do is, so long as we don't make him a vampire, everything's okay. Although I'm not sure if vampires can reproduce anyway. Well, not
You
in.
can adopt.
Yeah. I was gonna say not in the traditional sense of reproduction. I'm not gonna ask a grossly inappropriate. Like, it would be so off the chain for the stream. Oh my god, I didn't see him. Grossly.
You've also got my followers here, so it's really probably not off that far off what they're thinking right now.
It was more just like, okay, so vampires, right? Those rascals. Is the sperm in their balls dead? Like, is it not there, or is it straight up dead?
It depends on which mythology and which series you're reading. I've had writers that I've read, they've compared it to it's just like acid now, or it's just dead, or it just doesn't exist. My least favourite was the acid one.
They fucking wipe it and it dissolves the tissue in front of them or something like that.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh no.
Can
Man.
vampires piss? I've had that quite. See, I ascribe to the idea that as long as they are, as long as their organs are still functioning to process blood, then yes, they will have to go pee and do all those wonderful things that your bodies have to do. It's been a weird, you can't speak unless you breathe because air is how your vocal cords work. So if a vampire's speaking, they must be utilising their lungs in some way. So the idea that they don't breathe to me has never made sense. The idea that they can choose to breathe does, or that they can choose to slow down their breathing makes sense to me. But the idea that, vampires don't breathe, well, how are they speaking? That's not how vocal cords work.
So this thing here is a sewer beast. Is that werewolf, or is it just? Yeah, I mean it looks.
It's a werewolf in this one. Yeah, I think it gets renamed werewolf after you find out what it is.
Oh, right, okay. I like how man who's just become a vampire is like, oh, what could this be? this giant fucking wolf thing that's bipedal. Oh, I wonder. I really wonder. Guy's very well read on his mythology, but not these guys. Okay, so this isn't going too well. Oh god, no, this is not. I also think this guy is recovering as well, which is...
They do recover, yeah.
Yeah, it fucking sucks. I am not doing well here because I'm really under-leveled. I'm level 5. I should have rested in bed. Yeah. Also,
I
I've
do
got
enjoy
like
the Magnus Archives. Yeah.
all I can do is like hope to kind of dodge. And then he dodges, so it's like, oh my god. Every time he lands like a single hit, I'm getting like half my health fucking taken away. I need to just constantly heal. Yeah, I've not died to a boss yet, so I'm gonna try and maintain that just for you guys. At least I've got that cool wee dodge move. I find that quite useful.
I think I spend most of this game dodging.
Yeah. It's really the only move, because you can't block with a weapon or anything, so it's like... I do like the... so obviously stunning someone and biting them is like one tactic, but you can also use the weapon that I'm using at the moment, which is just you get the blood directly from the weapon, which is way easier in my mind, rather than trying to go out my way to stun someone to death. The only problem is until I really level up any of my weapons, like I've only got that one like major attack with the claw. Oh shit. Sorry, I look like I'm concentrating a lot. Everyone, please feel free to keep talking and ask Joy as many questions as you like. Is everyone?
I'm just watching you.
Oh no, okay, no,
no, because I know I died at this point, so.
I'm trying my hardest not to fail my. I mean, I've died once to a stupid person, but I've not died to a boss yet. I'm about to though. Fucking hell.
Monstrous vampires more bat than man. Opinions. I do like when things get more monstrous sometimes. It's not necessarily what I want for romance, but when I'm going the pure horror route, I do love the more animalistic aspects of it. Joy, Batman or Man-Bat?
Yeah.
And again, which genre are we in? Favorite video game is Frostpunk.
Very good game. Question for you, actually. Now it comes to mind. Can someone read that out? Joy, if you could maybe read that.
How do you deal with people watching you making you play worse? Basically,
just own it
like
is the best way. Like honestly, just admit you're garbage and you suck at video games, and it gets so much better. Like if. Like there's some streamers and like particularly speedrunners that really thrive on like absolute excellence when they play, but I feel like I have a lot more fun with you guys when I'm just like, well, that was a stupid death. F in chat. I don't know, it makes streams more fun. Like, but there is a fine line, I would say. There is a no, you can't. There is a fine line, I would say, actually. When you are repeatedly dying. Now that being said, we managed to do the Smelter Demon on Dark Souls 2 in over the course of a 2-hour stream. Oh yeah, I get really good at games when I'm kind of a bit drunk. I don't know what it is. I think it's just
Stop caring.
stop caring, or just I don't know. I've become a god basically. Oh, fuck.
If you just heard that very loud ka-ching sound, that was someone buying the book off Gumroad. So thank you.
Hey, nice. We got
That
you
was
some
my
sales.
phone going off.
That was my mission. If we could get one sale for Joy tonight, then I've done my job. Nah, but I would seriously, I would all of you recommend that you go and buy Joy's book. It's fantastic. I've been really enjoying it, and I'm going to be reading some more of it actually when I head off. I've got a nighttime ritual now, and it really involves doing my Duolingo and then getting to read your book, or just like reading in general. But that's my ritual at the moment.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
No, it's really
I'm glad
good.
you're enjoying it.
And as like some of the stuff that we've talked about tonight, I mean, I'm looking forward to what happens in the rest of the book. I've not even gotten to like the really hardcore stuff yet. So far, I've only read about him wanking, which is
you
pretty
know,
good.
that's fine.
I read it and I was like, same.
There's a lot of we start veering towards the next theme of the series, which is a lot of eco-conservation will save the world, which is basically it's the whole series can be summed up in terms of queer polyamorous love and being active in your community, and eco-conservation is what is needed to save humanity. Basically, that's basically where everything's going at this point. With a few more vampire demons and undead plants thrown in for measure. Thank you, Deliberately Dragon. I really appreciate it.
I'm just glad that my stream has the power to do stuff. My stream has the ability to impact people's buying decisions. Excellent. Right, we need to...
I'm hoping I get the second book out this year. I don't like I'm not doing any long deadlines anymore because I did the year-long pre-order, and then COVID happened and my health started falling apart again. So I was like, well, never mind. So I no longer
stamina. Sorry.
Okay. When we're here to watch you play, I'm just prattling on back.
No, we're not.
But yeah,
Nobody's here to watch me play Vampire.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get the second book out this year, and I've also got a couple of short stories that'll be coming out this year as well. Provided everything goes well. There's some of my editing team are currently dealing with some health problems as well, and it's one of those things where I always, health has to come first with everything we do. So it's, when last year everyone on my team started dropping with COVID, and everyone was apologising, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. I'm going, I don't care. Your health comes first. It's very much I have it, but I keep waffling on reading again. You're waiting on sequels. Well, hopefully the second book will let you read the first one this year, and then you can torturously wait for the third book. That's also true. You can, Puny Humans is also Alan, who Dr. Alan's named after, by the way.
Nice.
Holly Mop is she may or may not feature. That's all I'm saying. Holly Mop may or may not feature.
I did see someone ask me to do a live reading, and I can only see that I'm fucking terrible with voices. And also Joy probably wouldn't allow it because I would hamper any future sales going forward.
Nikki Chime, there's going to be 5 books in total plus a bunch of short stories. That's the way it's sort of panning out at the moment. It may decrease or increase depending on how my plot, because I'm very much a loose plotter, so it could either end up more than that or it could end up less. But at the moment it's looking like 5 books for the whole series. Plus you'll be getting a lot of missing moments because there's some chapters and scenes I can't include because it slows down the narrative too much. And also if you include too much porn, Amazon puts you in the erotica dungeon, which you don't want. So.
How strict are Amazon on that sort of stuff? Just curious.
They're getting really strict. They're starting to get really strict. They also rate LGBT titles as regardless of content. If you're writing for LGBT, they will automatically rank you as more explicit than anything else.
That's just
so.
cunty, isn't
If
it?
anyone's listening, if there's anyone listening and you are thinking about doing Amazon Kindle in the future, do not submit on weekends. Do it on weekdays only, because the people that run the the censors that work the weekends for Amazon US are homophobic cunts. So you will get more problems if you try submitting over the weekend. There was one guy in particular that we know of, who every time I had to do any alterations on weekends, the book would get thrown into review. And it's immediately, well, this should really be erotica. Why? It's not got the ratio, the narrative to porn ratio for erotica. Well, it's LGBT, so. So yes, it's very, Amazon's not particularly friendly, but there are ways around it. And that's also one of the reasons for when I'm uploading files, I will often take parts of my website offline because I include content ratings and content warnings for anyone that might want them on my website. I will actually deactivate those pages until after the book is published. Usually by a couple of hours. I keep it offline until the book's been up for a couple of hours, and then I put those web pages back on, because I don't want anyone from Amazon clicking on those pages and going, oh well, look at this, like we've got a reason to delete what she's writing. Because they've done that before. They've actually gone after authors who have put content warnings in their books, and they've gone, well, we don't want this explicit content on our platform, and yet 50 Shades of Grey is allowed to thrive. So
Sorry, I would have a witty comment to say about Amazon, but I'm almost through. Get in there. Haha! Amazon, fuck you. You and your censorship pish. Fuck you, Jeff. Actually, he owns Twitch, so I better shut up.
Not a lot to check, but I should anyway.
you'd pay for an anthology. The anthology is not a 50 Shades of Vladdy. That's just Sugar Vladdy at this point. That's just my AO3. But yeah, there will eventually be an option to buy either as a collection or just individually, and I'll probably be doing that through my website because I don't make a lot of money on the small prints that are on Amazon, because Amazon takes about something like 60% of what you earn. So I get more through Gumroad for certain. I earn more on the full books than I do the short stories. I'd say fuck Amazon, you'd probably catch a virus, but yes.
So that's actually
Amazon...
one thing I would like to ask, if it's okay, is obviously I would like to support the people that I'm friends with who are authors and other creators and stuff like that. And when it comes to authors in particular, like I posted the link to your website in the chat earlier. Is there like a kind of ideal best returns site for creators? Like you mentioned Gumdrop, is that like the place
Gumroad
to get the book?
Yeah.
Gumroad, sorry.
So the way the sales is, anywhere you choose to buy the book from helps the author. Because even though we might make less money on Amazon, if you get a sale on Amazon, it increases your sales ranking, which can lead to organic sales from people outside your usual audience.
Right.
So it's 6 and 2 threes. You're trading off benefits against the other. Some people really hate buying from Amazon, and for those people, Gumroad is the place to go, because unless you didn't know this, you can use Gumroad to upload into your Kindle file, and Jeff Bezos doesn't get a penny. So if you want to keep your Kindle library intact but support independent authors who use Gumroad, you can download the MOBI file, and that will go into your Kindle. You just sometimes have to manually sync it. Same with the EPUB file, if you want to read on Apple but you want to give the author slightly more money and they have a Gumroad, or they even offer this on their own websites and they're often purchased directly through their website, you can do that as well. And those files of those formats will work with Kindle, Apple Books, and any other e-reader you have. eBook's the universal one. And Mobi tends to be for Kindle, but even Kindle are starting to phase out Mobi, I think, from what they're doing.
And so, just reading out that question.
Gumroad is currently only digital, but I am working on updating my website that you can buy. I have to buy a license on all these things to make it secure, but I will eventually you can buy sales through there. If you really want, if you're in the US, even also the UK, I think, and you want to support the paperback, you can go through bookshop.org, who actually provide the best author affiliate links for me as well, which helps me I don't get a lot of money on paperbacks. I talked about that a lot on my blog as well. I price my paperbacks very low because I want them to be. I know the disabled community doesn't have a lot of money, and I know it's the disabled community on Tumblr who's mostly interested in my work. And I price my books very, very low, and I only earn about $1 per paperback. And but I earn some money back on affiliate links and commission links. So on my website, everything that I have been able to make into an affiliate link means I get a little bit of a kickback from the retailer. It doesn't come out of your cost; it just comes out of the retailer's pocket, basically. So even when you're buying from Amazon, you are forcing them to give me something like 40 pence for every book you buy because I'm using affiliate links. So don't if Amazon's all people can use, that's great, because you're still forcing Jeff Bezos to give me more money than he should, or what he thinks he should. So but there's the main one that I use for the US for paperbacks that I would recommend is bookshop.org, because they also donate money to independent bookstores, and they've helped to keep a lot of bookstores open during the pandemic. And also the library, yes, if you can request it in your library, that would be fantastic, because they buy a licensed copy, and then even if you're requesting the ebook from the library, I get paid every time someone asks for it, basically. I get paid. It's almost like how Kindle does it, you get paid per download or whatever. So it's quite good. It's a good way. Libraries are a good way for authors to get paid. People don't realise that. Authors do get paid when you take books out.
Cool. That's
And also,
interesting.
yes, there's no DRM on Gumroad either. I don't have any DRM on Gumroad. If you buy the book off Gumroad, you own the book. If you buy it off Amazon and Amazon pulls it, you will lose your copy. They shouldn't pull it. They have no reason to pull it, but if they do, that's something I would have to fight. But with Gumroad, you own the files outright. I just ask that you not upload them anywhere else, like some people did.
Oh, shit.
Which was pretty gutting when people did that, to be honest. But I've had more people report them than I have do that, so that's been nice.
That's good. At least. Despite the pricks.
Yes, and currently hardbacks. I have a special edition of hardback that's coming out for the patrons. To any patrons listening, I'm so sorry it's taken so long. There's just been so much shit with COVID happening, and also just my own ability to be a person. I did actually get some really interesting and fun proofs that are arriving. I did get a proof recently that I wasn't too happy with, so it's gone back to the printer for modification. I'm not ruling out a general release of hardback at some point, but the Patreon ones have exclusive content in them in terms of artwork and a bunch of other stuff as well. So there could be hardbacks eventually. I will probably do those only through Amazon, because the cost of printing hardbacks through Ingram Spark, which is the main printer for here and most of Europe as well, is extortionate. More people reporting. That's
Steamy
because I'm a
artwork.
Gremlin army. That's very true. Steamy art. There's no steamy artwork in the book right now. There's a potential that Jen, who is the illustrator, will be doing some commissions at some point for prints that people can buy if they so desire. Possibly. We'll see how that pans out. I don't need to Kickstarter the hardbacks because my patrons funded it.
Cool. You should. I was gonna think you need to come up with some sort of witty title for the hardback, but you've probably already done that. Just because it has the word hard in it. But that's,
Do you know, I really haven't.
that's me being
but-
childish.
That's you being more on brand than me. But yeah, the hardbacks are something that I wanted to do. They were primarily for Patreon, because producing hardbacks is an astronomical cost. And I honestly thought I'd maybe get 10 people pledging. I got something like 200, 300 of the fuckers. So now I have to print that much. And it's expensive to print them. So it's not something I was expecting to do, but I'm very fortunate in that I have that money left over for Patreon. I can afford to do it. I kept that money for those people to say thank you. Because there was a time in my life where Patreon, they kept our lights on, they kept me alive when my health was extremely bad, they paid my medical bills, and for that I'm forever thankful. So if you're listening and you have supported me through that, thank you so much for everything that you did during that 5-year stint where I was hand gliding over hell by my fingernails. Weird, got a heart by throwing a chunk of money at you here, Tumblr. On that note, your website is still a no, right? Because I'm not.
Good evening, sir.
I'm not sure what you mean by my website being a no. Oh no, you will be if you pledge for hardbacks, you will be getting emails soon asking for your addresses.
Good.
Because I know a lot of people have moved since then. There was one person who I got their address a month ago and they've already moved. So if you are one of the hardback people and you do not get an automated email, because we will be using your email that you used for either Patreon or Ko-fi or whatever you used, let me know. Send me a wee note and I will sort it out for you.
Good evening, ma'am.
It's my son who needs.
I'm
No.
I'm just checking that everyone in chat got that. Cool. Right, I am afraid I will probably need to go to sleep on the basis that I have work early tomorrow morning. And I also want to get some reading in, again, of Hunger Pangs. So feel free to chuck your link in. I'm not sure if Mothman's on the case, and you can drop a couple of links in to where you can get the book. That'd be really good. Ah, yeah, Mondays. Fucking Mondays. It sure is, Skuldsbane. It sure is. But no, Joy, I would like to say any sort of parting words. I don't want to put you on a spot and say you need to. But if there is something that you'd like to say, feel free.
Thank you for having me. It's been I've had a lot of fun chatting with you. It's always nice when I get to chat with you. I wouldn't mind doing it again. I know you were kind of joking earlier about keeping your viewership up, but I honestly would not mind. It's always a great laugh when I get to come on. Yeah, just thank you. And thank you for everyone that's been super supportive. I've noticed a couple more Gumroad sales since we've been talking. Thank you so much for that, guys.
Nice
yeah, just I don't know.
So,
be sexy, be undead, drink blood. I don't know.
No, that's sound. I suppose I'll do my kind of plug if it's okay before we finish.
Right ahead.
Please, if you liked the stream, obviously we had a super special stream tonight because Joy joined us and we got to chat about everything and anything. And I dare say there's a lot more stuff that we could chat about in the future. But if you aren't already, feel free to give me a follow. It really helps me kind of grow the channel. There's also a whole bunch of other stuff that you can look at me on if you check out my YouTube channel. I'm also on Tumblr, as we've spoken about at length. And if you liked what you saw and would maybe like to come back for some more streams, it really kind of helps me on my kind of path to partner. And Delicious Pirate God has been extremely kind and has gifted 5 subs to the group. So Hokkacucks, oh my god, how to pronounce half of these. Ono Honu, at Sweechen-chan, MG Online, and Nature Boy 1. I hope you all enjoy your emotes. You now have access to premium tier emotes, such as my 2 cats vibrating aggressively, and me wielding a lightsaber, and an iron brew can. Yeah. So you've got a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm still on the lookout for emotes, actually. So, if you have any suggestions on the emote front, feel free to message me on Discord, drop them in the Twitch chat. Also, if you liked any particular section from this, if there was a bit of the chat that you enjoyed, feel free to clip it. Clips get uploaded to TikTok because I have a TikTok now. I know that half of you just fucking recoiled in disgust, but you can all blame Tristan because Tristan said TikTok would actually make a really good Twitch clip archive because it's roughly the same length as a TikTok video, so not too bad. But yeah, Joy, if it's all right, you can stay on the call for a minute. But I will end up. I'll end the stream there, and I won't put you through the pain of going through the Stinger transition again tonight. I think that would be a wee bit too cruel. But I'm gonna call it a night, and I hope you all have a good one. Wherever you are. The Imaginatrix, yes, we are done. However, I will put if you're okay with it, I'll put the whole video on YouTube.
That's fine by me.
So people will be able to watch it in its entirety, including the horrendous glitch right at the start. But yeah, you'll have the full thing sorted, and it'll all be there. You can also rewatch it on Twitch as well. So you've been listening. Okay. Well, good to see you, Imaginatrix. If you give me a wee follow or something like that, you'll be alerted when we go live next time, and you won't miss a thing. But thanks very much, everyone, for tonight. I've had a really good time. Next stream is on Tuesday. We're either continuing with Dark Souls 2, or we're maybe going to open it up to something else. And then on Wednesday, I think we're starting another thing. I don't know. I've not sorted my schedule yet. I'll post the schedule on Tumblr anyway, so you'll see it. But thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. See you in a bit. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.